The purpose of this video is to talk about the sacrum and the coccyx components of the complete vertebral column. In this model over here, you can see how the sacrum is positioned between the right and left coxal bones. And then as you travel inferiorly, you're going to get to the coccyx. The sacrum is a fusion of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sacral vertebrae that actually don't become fully fused until you're about the age of 30. The coccyx is going to be anywhere from 3 to 5 coccygeal vertebrae that become fused that you used to call a tailbone, but now is called the coccyx. That is going to be the remnants of a tail that we had as an embryo, but then lost as we advance in our development. So, I move this out of the way, and I look at the coccyx, or excuse me, the sacrum itself. You've got the anterior portion of the sacrum is going to be concave, whereas if you were to flip it, you would have then the posterior surface is going to be convex. To start on the anterior surface, just like in our typical vertebrae, the anterior surface is the body. The anterior surface of the sacrum is actually going to fuse. You're going to lose the intervertebral discs. And at this superior portion is a lip that's called the promontory. These lines represent the fusion points between your discs. Or yeah, the loss of your discs and the fusion points between your two bodies. On the sides, remember, in a typical vertebrae, we have the transverse processes. Well, over here on the sides, those transverse processes all fuse together. And that fusion is going to form what's called the ala, or the wing. And so on this anterior surface, we're going to say right here is going to be the ala. Remember, between the transverse process and the body was that portion called the pedicle. And then between pedicles, we have these openings for spinal nerves to come out. Well, if this is going to be the fusion of the transverse processes, and this is the fusion of the bodies, then these are fusion of the pedicles, and you've got openings that you still need for nerves to get out. And so these are called the anterior sacral foramina. Foramina is supposed to be plural, and then foramen is going to be singular. If I turn the sacrum around, I see holes on the posterior surface, and those would be the posterior sacral foramina, or an individual foramen. On this posterior surface, and if I turn our articulated spinal column around, remember we had the spinous processes coming out the posterior side of each vertebrae. Those spinous processes are going to fuse to form what's called the median sacral crest. And so that's going to be along the midline of the posterior surface of the sacrum. Here, where the superior articulating processes would be, we're going to have just an articulating process, because we only have one. And then the facet is going to be, again, this smooth surface that is going to actually make contact with lumbar vertebrae number 5. Okay, so that's how that would be configured right there. So again, we see our transverse processes would be these wings over here, and then we have our articulating processes here. We don't have any more articulating processes besides the superiormost one. What do those become? They become another set of ridges running down the back, and they're called the lateral sacral crests. So for my honors friends, I'm going to expect you to know from a typical vertebrae, what would these fused components have as a precursor? Okay. If we go back to a typical vertebrae, we've got this opening for the spinal cord. The spinal cord, technically, is going to stop between L1 and L2 here. But we have to have nerves that continue to come down. Those nerves will continue to come down, and they have to be protected in the sacrum. And so really, I can remove this portion, and I can show you that there is a gap. It is hollow. And this gap is called the sacral canal. What did we call it in a typical vertebrae? We called it the vertebral foramen. What are we going to call the path, the longer pathway between the fused bodies and the fused spinous processes is going to be the sacral canal. This opening at the bottom, at the inferior portion, is called the sacral hiatus. And again, starting at this portion right here, this line, and inferiorly is going to be the coccyx. And so it's fused in both of these cases. We have some sacrums where the coccyx is either detached and separate in the bin, or we have some that are missing the coccyx altogether. So make sure that you recognize which one is which. Okay. The last thing that I want to show you is that on the lateral surface of the ala, there's going to be a large concave kind of groove on either side. And this is called the auricular surface of the sacrum. This surface is going to articulate or touch, make a joint with another bone. And where is that going to take place? Slide that over. It is taking place with our coxal bones. That is the sacrum and coccyx. Thank you for watching, and I hope it was helpful.